like I said, you get to talk to other franchisees in the system, and how much of that you do is really up to you, as to, because it takes time and you make calls. And but those franchisees can open their book and share as much as they're willing to with you. Hopefully they know their numbers. And so again, that's where you might be able to say, hey, in comparable markets, here's how they did, and if you had to pay more in labor or what have you.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Jon Ostenson is the founder and CEO of FranBridge Consulting, an Inc. 5000 company, and ranks among the top 0.1% of franchise consultants. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Non-Food Franchising. Drawing from his experience as a former Inc. 500 franchise president and a multi-brand franchisee, Jon helps clients identify and invest in franchise opportunities. His expertise is regularly featured in major publications like Forbes, Inc. and Bloomberg. You can learn how to leverage non-food franchises as lucrative alternatives to traditional business ventures or as semi-passive investments, while gaining insights into identifying the right franchise opportunities for your unique goals. So Jon, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Candy. Excited about our conversation.
I'm looking forward to it as well. But before we get into the topic and questions I have for you, I'd love for you just to share your journey and what led you to the world of franchising.
Yeah, like so many of your listeners, I spent many years in the corporate world and had a good run. Was very fortunate to have different experiences. But, at the end of the day, I was working to build someone else's empire. And I had this desire to become a business owner and spread my wings and try my hand at it. So I didn't know what that looked like. And, really, fortunately fell into franchising. I think God just opened a door out of the blue. And, it was about 8 years ago that I'd started networking around and, had the introduction to a role in which I'd become president of Shelf Genie franchise system, and stepped into that and led franchisees on a day-to-day basis all across North America, fell in love with the franchise model. And since then, I've become a multi-brand franchisee myself. So I've been on both sides of the table here. And about 6 years ago, started my consulting practice, where in addition to that, I'm helping others get plugged into franchising. And we work with about 600 different franchise brands and love introducing the ones that we feel are the top opportunities for our clients in their respective markets. And so that, like many of your listeners, when I first heard the word franchise, I thought fast food, but there's so many more opportunities outside of food.
Right. I've had quite a few franchisee owners as clients too. And one of them actually had told me how he got into it. He'd actually been an engineer. He'd been laid off his job and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. So he did meet with a consultant who found out what he might enjoy and be good at, and found out really he loved fitness. And so he got him into a gym franchise. But I would love to know then, if someone comes to you and is like, well, I'm thinking of going this direction, but I have no idea what is the right opportunity for me. How do you help them narrow down what those opportunities might be?
Well, I would say first off, know that you're in the majority. Most people don't know what they're looking for, and they'll tell me things they know they don't want to do, or maybe things that they enjoy doing. I'd say in most cases, people are getting into opportunities where they don't have some existing level of interest or habit around it, but they look at the business and say, that's one that I could see myself and my skill set transferring well to. That's something that could be useful to our community. And, importantly, I can see myself doing very well financially with. So, I spend a little while getting to know the client. We don't go crazy on doing in-depth assessments because I feel like that's a waste of time. What I find is most helpful is to cut to the chase pretty quickly and share opportunities with my clients. So if I said, hey, Candy, in your area of Northeast Tennessee, based on comparable markets, based on what you've shared with me, based on what I'm seeing in the market, here are 10 or 12 opportunities that if I were in your shoes, I'd be interested in. And by the way, I've already checked to make sure they're available there in your market. So, from there, the client would narrow them down to maybe 3 or 4 to then have a conversation with. And we can always iterate off of that, but it gives us a really good starting point. And they start to crystallize in their mind through these conversations what types of characteristics in a business could fit them best.
Hmm. And you're right that people probably think when they hear the word franchise, they think food, right? McDonald's or Burger King or, all of those too. But you said that non-food franchises are really gaining popularity. And why is that?
Well, we've got nothing against the food guys. We need them. We support them. But my humble belief is there are simply easier ways to make money. Businesses that require maybe fewer employees, less operating hours, less capital investment, less susceptible to consumer whims and taste changing. The types of industries they're looking in these days, and like you said, we are seeing more interest than ever before, I think for a variety of different reasons. A lot of cash on the sidelines, a lot of going back to the office, pushback, a lot of real estate investors that are saying, hey, there aren't many good real estate deals to be had. Maybe I should look at business ownership now. A lot of those moving over. So our biggest challenge is the good opportunities are moving fast in good markets because there is so much interest. But, the things they're getting involved in, it's everything from home and property services to areas like health and wellness to categories like kids or pets or seniors. I'd say the general theme is what are business opportunities that people will always spend on regardless of the environment. Understandable cash flowing businesses that aren't going out of style. Maybe they're not trendy, but they're here to stay. And and there's so many different niches, which I'm happy to get into beneath these umbrellas, but I'd say that's a general direction of what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. So what are the key differences that entrepreneurs should be aware of if they're going to potentially go the franchising route versus starting their own business from scratch?
Yeah. Well, first off, franchising is not right for everyone. There are clients I work with that I have to explain, you're too entrepreneurial. You want to put your thumbprints all over the business. It's not a good fit. But I do believe for the vast majority of would-be business owners out there, franchising is a better path because it's a business in a box where, this business model has been proven out. Product market fit has been shown in comparable markets. And now it's all about executing. And so, obviously you have a coach on the sidelines in that franchisor, but you also have a community of other franchisees living the same thing as you are day in, day out. So you're constantly exchanging best practices. It sounds cliche to say, but you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. You've got a built-in team. Obviously there's synergies around buying in bulk, whether it be goods or services. There's a lot of, there's a playbook that's been, again, written. So it's just about executing it. The brand may come into play. Obviously in food and hotels, brand is everything. But in a lot of these industries, I'll use insulation as an example. Insulation is a $50 billion industry. Most people can't name an insulation brand. That's not what's most important. It's all the shared marketing and lead generation. The nice thing is with franchising, you're able to step in day one and have a somewhat optimized marketing plan because they've got large data sets that they've worked off of. They know what that ramp up looks like in other markets. So it's all about pulling those levers. And yes, some of my clients, they think they're the smartest guy in the room, no matter what room they're in. And franchising is not a good fit for them. You've got to humble yourself a little bit and say, there's a reason why I'm getting into the franchise. I'm going to follow the lead of the expert who's been there and done that in that franchisor. And I'm going to bring my skill sets to the table. I'm going to bring insights, but the core of it is going to be following the system.
Right. Yeah, because the franchisor, they started and they created their systems and processes and found what works. And now they're duplicating that into other, locations. And so they're giving you like, this is what we did. This is how we were successful, and giving you that roadmap, right, to follow and then implement that in their own business.
Exactly.
So I guess what are some of the unique non-food franchise opportunities that you believe are underexplored but highly profitable?
I'll start out just mentioning a few that I'm invested in and then build off of that because I think I'm fairly diverse. I've got a business that does temporary walls, containment walls around renovation projects or construction sites. It's kind of an equipment rental type business. I'm pretty passive in a couple of these, but love that one. Kind of the niche. It's a B2B recurring revenue service. I've got another one that's also a B2B service, business to business, and that's asphalt paving and line striping. So think parking lots, parking decks. Talk about a non-sexy needs-based business. But then I've got one that's a cool business. It's we use 3D printing to create custom insoles, so custom orthotics. We also sell some running shoes and sandals, but got that down in South Florida, and I live in Atlanta, but that's one where I've got a good team in place. They're running business for me down there. there's so many different niches. I've placed a lot of clients like in-home senior care. That's a huge need in the community. That's one where you're giving back in a way too. It's kind of a feel-good business, but you can do very well financially with that one. Youth soccer. And I'll just mention on the senior side. So we think in-home senior care. I've had clients that have also bought businesses that do wheelchair ramps and stair lifts and bathroom retrofitting, like mobility solutions, helping people age in place. That goes great hand in hand with that senior care. In the kids space, it could be tutoring. It could be, we just had a client that bought a couple of preschools up in Chicago. I've done a lot with like youth soccer and youth enrichment, pets, pet grooming, pet boarding, health and wellness. We just had a client that bought the business has multiple modalities under one roof from a recovery standpoint. So think infrared sauna, cold plunge, cryo, red light, all these things under one roof. Certainly niches within fitness we still like. I think some fitness is a little overdone, but there are areas that I still like there. Home and property services has probably been our most popular area. I'd say everyone from doctors and lawyers to middle managers to current business owners that are looking to diversify. They love home and property services. They're just so scalable. So it's everything from flooring and roofing to, kitchen remodeling, painting. But then you have a lot of different niches. Like there's one that I'm invested in on the franchisor side that has custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries, driveways, things that people are always going to spend on. Is definitely the theme of the game.
Right. So if someone is thinking like, well, I might be interested in checking out what the franchise opportunity is, can you talk about maybe some of the costs that they're going to face for, getting into the franchise to begin with, and maybe some of the ongoing expenses that they would have as a franchisee?
Absolutely. And I'll start by saying it's entirely free to work with us. We get a referral fee from the brand on the back end. None of that's passed on to our clients. So we'll get that out of the way. Entirely free to work with us. But no, to invest in a franchise, I had clients buy 10 trampoline parks the other day in Dallas. Those are $3.5 million each. So that shows you how large it can be. Most opportunities are well below that. Most of our clients are getting into opportunities where if you look at the franchise fee, the startup cost, and several months of working capital all built in, you're in the $150,000 to $300,000 ballpark. I'd say that's where a lot of things fall. Certainly a good bit on either side of that as well, but 150 to 300. Some people are using cash. Some are using maybe 50,000 of cash plus an SBA loan. Obviously, banks prefer lending to franchises over startups. So that's very common. Right. Some people will use an old retirement plan, a 401k, and roll that over through what's called the ROBS program and purchase the business with a retirement plan. Certainly, a lot of these real estate guys will use HELOCs as well. So a lot of ways to make it happen. But I'd say 150 to 300, give or take, is where a lot of opportunities open up.
And then once they are a franchisee, what are some of those ongoing costs that they would have to pay to the franchisor for operating?
Yeah, typically your ongoing cost would be a royalty somewhere in the 6 to 8% of revenue that's going back to the franchisor. And some people look at that and say, gosh, well, that's a lot of money. Well, the question is, are they providing the value for that money? So that's part of the exploration process on the front end. We want to make sure that you're going to be getting the value from that franchisor. And when you break it out what they're providing, oftentimes these are things that you would be paying for anyway if you were to just go do a startup. You'd be paying this fee or that fee. And so again, just wanting to make sure that the value is there. All the numbers that the franchisor gives you around historical performance and expectations on the profit side, bake in that royalty. So there shouldn't be any surprises around that.
Right. And I do know too, I have a client who's also a franchise, another franchise, I had a few, and they're actually in the food services, but they also have to pay advertising percentage as well. So do you see that also in a lot of these, especially maybe the non-food industries, or is it mostly royalties?
Yeah, it'd be less than the non-food on average. Usually it's 1%, sometimes 2% that you're paying. That should be directly coming back and benefiting the marketing that's being done in your area. So again, you would be paying this anyway, but yeah, I'd say the royalty and the marketing fee are the key pieces. Some will have a technology fee too that may be a couple $100 a month. Again, you'd be paying that if you weren't a franchisee too, right? You have to have technology to run the business. So all of that is disclosed in what's called the FDD, the franchise disclosure document. that every franchise system has one. Every springtime, usually around the April, May time period, they refresh that with the latest year's data. Then it has to go through all these approvals and audits. And so that's the nice thing about franchising too, is you go in, you know what you're getting into, eyes wide open. You can talk to other franchisees and hear about their experience and ask them questions, but you also get the historical financial data and experience behind the business. So you go in eyes wide open.
So when you were talking to saying like, well, they'll provide you information on about like what the revenue is, or, potentially what the profit should be. Of course, knowing that depending on how the person operates their business, that could, have a different outcome than maybe what they provided. But is that based on really the region, or is it more just an average of across the United States, right? Because some states, obviously, labor costs are more, or, different things are higher or lower. Like, so do they kind of give you those numbers based on the region, or how do they do that so you can make a wise decision?
Yeah, so you get a couple of data points. So in that FDD, every franchise system breaks down a little bit differently in what's called the item 19 within that franchise disclosure document. And some will give just a general average. Some may give just the corporate location because they don't have the detail on their franchisees' individual businesses. Sometimes they'll say, hey, our top quartile, our middle quartiles, and our bottom quartile. Some will break it out by location. So you do see different levels of detail. It'd be nice if it was all the same, but it's not. And some give a lot more detail than others. So that gives you some data to start with. And then, you, like I said, you get to talk to other franchisees in the system, and how much of that you do is really up to you as to, because it takes time and you make calls. And, but those franchisees can open their book and share as much as they're willing to with you. Hopefully they know their numbers. And so again, that's where you might be able to say, hey, in comparable markets, here's how they did. And, if you had to pay more in labor or what have you. And so again, nothing's a guarantee. You're exactly right. If you were to start a business that's not franchised, certainly there's nothing guaranteed, and you don't have any information to go on in a lot of cases, back of the napkin math. Here, at least you have a starting point to build your assumptions around. But yeah, they're very upfront about, hey, this is not a guarantee of future performance.
Right. That because so many start businesses and fail, and 20% in the first year now is some of the numbers that I'm hearing. And of course, up after 10 years, 33% approximately are still in business. So of course there is no guarantee. And those who are starting on their own, I think those are the ones that struggle even more, because they are trying to make those decisions and run the company and wear like the 20 hats and try to figure out how to do the marketing or hiring or all the things that you have to do without any guidance, or, maybe they have a mentor, or maybe they talk to SCORE or something like that just to get a little bit of advice. But like you said, in a franchise, you do have that support system, whether it's other entrepreneurs or you have the franchisor who could come and give some guidance too. So I think, there's pros and cons. Yes, you're going to pay more to be in the franchise, but then, like you said, you have all this extra support too. So I think that's one of the decisions they just have to weigh, right? What's more important to them.
100%. No, definitely your success rate in franchising, and I see different stats out there, but in every case, it is higher than a traditional startup. But I've done this long enough. Most of our clients are very, very successful. We've had a few that are no longer in business. I want to be upfront about that. It's a very small percentage. But what's really interesting is there's a franchise system where I had a lot of clients that were very successful, but I had a client that was not, and it went out of business. And I called the franchisor, who I know very well, and said, what happened here? He said, John, we flew into their territory. We coached them up. We did everything we could to support them. End of the day, they wouldn't follow the system. They tried to do things their own way. They just wouldn't follow the system. And that was eye-opening to me. It's just a reminder. It's cliche, but follow the system. When I was at Shelf Cheney and I looked across all of our franchisees, the top performing ones were halfway decent with people, right? That's business 101, but they also followed the system. And I will also say, just like any industry, you're going to have good players and you're going to have ones that are not as strong. Franchising is the same way. There's great franchisors. There are ones that you wouldn't want to be in their franchise system. And that's where we come in to help our clients, based on our experience, based on what we see out there, try to identify the ones that we feel most strongly about for their future success that will support them the way that they need.
Right. So how does it work then too? If someone has a franchise and now they're, nearing retirement or their life has changed, they want to sell, and get out of what they're doing, how does that work? Does the franchisor help find someone new, or is it up to, that person to just put their business on the market? Like, how does it work to actually exit being a franchise?
Yeah, you would sell it just like a regular business. I'd say the onus is a little more on the franchisee. The franchisor may have some leads that they can, introduce them to. One very common approach is another franchisee in the system buys your location. They know the business. They're looking to expand. It's what I call internal M&A, mergers and acquisitions. It's very, very common. I personally bought other franchisees. I've also sold to other franchisees. So it's very, very common. But no, they can put it out on Biz by Sell or one of those websites. They can use a broker. End of the day, the franchisor technically has to approve that next buyer, but as long as it's not some knucklehead, they usually approve them. They don't want someone's going to run the brand off the rails, right? But it's in their interest to have continuity of business. So I've got clients all the time say, hey, we'd love to find resales of existing franchises. The thing is, oftentimes there aren't that many out there that are attractive because people tend to hold on to these for a while. So, but no, and franchise is one other point. Actually trade at a higher multiple than non-franchise businesses in the same industries in most cases. So there's a lot of value from that resale buyer standpoint that they see in it. And that's what the studies have shown.
Yeah, the client that I have that has the restaurants, he actually took over 2 more locations from someone who was retiring. But because they often have meetings together, like all the franchisees in that region, will get together for a quarterly meeting or whatever it is, they had built relationship over many, many, many years. And so they trusted each other. It was really easy for them to work that relationship out, where he took over those stores. So that is a great way, to do it. But I was just curious if someone is like, well, I'm kind of done with the business now, or, maybe they have a health issue or they're moving or whatever the situation is, what that might look like to exit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just like selling another business, and there are different avenues to do it.
Right. So is there anything else maybe on this topic that you would like to share? I didn't know, like to ask a question about that would be helpful for the listener?
Yeah, no, I think you asked some great questions, covered a lot. I'd say, again, entirely free to work with us, and we have a very defined process. So I'm happy to share a copy of my book as well, Non-Food Franchising, which has really helped a lot. We in 90 pages, we packed in a lot of content that I think could serve as a really good primer to help people get the juices flowing on the types of businesses and what it looks like to step into it. So, no, I just always encourage people, hey, get off the couch. There's nothing to lose by dipping a toe in the water, learning more. And certainly if we can help, more than happy to.
So do you ever help on the other side of things where someone has a business and they want it to become a franchise to help them? Or would you like refer them to someone else who actually helps them create the franchise?
All of the above. So I don't personally take companies through the process, but I'm always happy to jump on a call and talk through it because I've been a franchisor. I am a franchisee. I am a franchise consultant. I've seen a lot. And so I'm happy to share kind of the things to weigh and, help you understand, is it a franchisable business? Is now the right time based on where you are trajectory wise? And then I do have a great resource that I introduce people to that can take them soup to nuts through the process of franchising their business. So I'm always happy to do that pro bono, have those calls. And I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and some other groups where I get approached with that question quite often. And, people love businesses that aren't usually ones you would think of as franchises, right? I mean, it's the different niches that people are getting involved. I met with one the other day. It's a mental health counselor. She's got a great operation. She's thinking about franchising it. Met with one that does, swim lessons. They're looking to franchise another one that has power generators, residential power generators. He's like, maybe I should franchise this. I've got a good thing going. So happy to have that conversation.
Okay, perfect. Well, I know you just mentioned, you have a book, so I assume maybe that's the offer you want to share, but I do want to ask, what you do want to share with our listeners. And then if anyone wants to connect with you, how do they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share the book, free downloadable copy. Just reach out to us. Come to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com. That's FRAN, bridgeconsulting.com. I'm sure we'll be in the show notes. And yeah, if you'd like to take a next step, indicate there's a little box on there as well. Just indicate that you'd like to jump on a call, and I'd be more than happy to kind of kick off the conversation and get to know each other and see if I can help in any way with your franchise expiration. So certainly if you'd rather buy the book on Amazon or anywhere else, all the proceeds go to Hope International, which is a great nonprofit that I support, that we feel very strongly about. And but yeah, would love to help anyone that I can. It's just come out to our website as a first step, franbridgeconsulting.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jon, for being a guest on my show. It's been a pleasure having you here, sharing your wisdom and expertise and helping entrepreneurs understand, like, is franchising, a great opportunity for them? So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic and you want to hear additional information, you can find access to exclusive content in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.